Hello, this is not a video I had planned, but if there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I love drama, and the It Ends With Us movie comes out today as we speak, and there's been a lot of drama, so let's get talking. I just put myself on a rooftop because it felt like the right thing to do. Okay, so prior to today, I had never finished a Colleen Hoover book. I tried reading November 9th back in like 2020. I got like 30% in and I was like, ooh, this sucks. So then I dipped. This was when like Colleen Hoover was still like peak book talk. So I tried reading that and then I was like, ooh, that's not for me. So then I picked up It Ends With Us. I got probably a couple pages and Ryle came in, knocked the chair, and I was like, ooh, I got the ick. So I stopped reading until yesterday. When I picked it back up, I picked up the audiobook and then like an ebook version. I don't own the physical copy. And I want to talk about it right now that it's fresh in my mind because I literally just finished it. I did in fact start it because of the drama happening during the press tour, which we will also cover. And you know what? If that was PR, brilliant, because it caught me. You know, some people say that this book is like complete garbage, that it totally sucks, and other people will stand by it. Like Colleen Hoover is my favorite author. All her books are amazing. All her books are 5 stars. And I think depending on what side of TikTok, what side of the book world you're into, you're gonna have a very different experience if you're picking up the book for the first time. Because I hear a lot more the cons that I was expecting, like complete and utter trash. And I'll be honest, it wasn't. Like I've read significantly worse books, okay? And I'm not here to say that I'm some literary, but I'm not here to say I'm some literary scholar. There you go, I said the word. Because no, I have questionable takes in books. Some books have been very bad, I'm not gonna lie. Some have even been so bad that I'm like, why am I reading this? Why am I enjoying this? Something's like seriously wrong with me. Was it the best book I've ever read? No, not this year, not this month, not this week. But it wasn't horrible. It has some redeeming qualities, just like I think there is some things that are irredeemable in connection and correlation to this book. The way it's presented as a rom-com, because it's not. Take a seat. I'm gonna give you like a quick summary. So our main character's name is Lily Bloom Blossom. Yeah, questionable name. I can't shit on it too hard because I too have a flower name. However, my middle name is not Bloom and my last name is not Blossom. Or did I turn those around? No, I think I got it right. One day she meets this guy named Ryle on a rooftop. That's why I was on a rooftop. There was symbolism there. This happens after her father's funeral, where she tells Ryle that she didn't give him a proper eulogy and goes into trigger warning here for the book and for this video. Talks about how her father was abusive to her mother. Prior to this, Ryle does kick a chair and it's kind of like your first red flag. And when I first read the book, I noticed it as a red flag and I stopped reading. But I didn't know at the time that this character would then go on to abuse Lily as well. So like that was shocking to me once I completely entered the book space on TikTok. Because at this time, I was still kind of like a ship passing in the night. I don't know if that's the correct metaphor here, but like I would occasionally dip my toe into the book talk world and then like peace on out. Like I was not reading 50 books a year. I was really into the fanfic spaces at the time, like AO3 and we were like this. Back to the book. Those are our two main characters, Lily and Ryle. There's a third character that's gonna be pretty important here is Atlas. And Atlas we meet through flashbacks in journal entry form. Think of Dear Diary except Dear Ellen Jenner. Because Lily writes her journal entries to Ellen. This book was published in 2016. That seems very like 2016 quirky girl energy. So that's probably why it's done. You see Lily's abusive father and her mother and kind of like resentment that Lily carries for her mom for allowing herself to be in the situation. Lily's words, not mine. Not quote by quote, but like that's kind of where she's coming from, that it's like, you could just dip, you are allowing this to happen, how dare you, like you are weak. And she's gonna have a change of heart, but this is the mind of like 16-year-old Lily. During this time she meets Atlas, who is this homeless dude that goes to her school. She starts to bond, she starts to like care for him, and one of the things that they bond over is abusive households, and he ends up getting kicked out by his father and is now currently homeless, as I've stated. They develop a relationship. It's actually like really cute and sweet at times where you're like, oh, this is so like pure and innocent, but it's also deeply traumatic. Anyways, I believe that this is what it starts with us, like the prequel is about. I might have to read it. Now I'm in deep. I fear. This doesn't last long because Alice ends up going to Boston with one of his uncles and ends up joining the military, but tells Lily though that like when his life is peaceful enough, he'll go back searching for her. Very like, Peter, you said you were gonna grow up and you were gonna come find me. Okay, I have a thing with Taylor Swift that I will connect it to everything and anything possible. Back to the present. Lily opens up a flower shop and the person that she hires to work at the store is Ryle's sister Alyssa. And then that's how Ryle gets back into her life. So they start going out. Ryle's also a neurosurgeon. That seems kind of relevant here. She's in a McDreamy era. One night, her mom, and Ryle go to a restaurant that ends up being where she comes across, guess who, Atlas. She runs into him and is like, ooh, do I still like look have feelings? And she's like, no, I'm really happy with Ryle. And he's like, yeah, I moved on to Slay. This conversation will be relevant later on in the future. Keep it in mind. At this point, Lily thinks that her life is going great, right? She has her mother, who's now safe. She has her flower shop that seems to be going great so far. And this neurosurgeon, who she's like, ooh, that's my man, right? Until things fall apart in 15 seconds, which is like the tagline for this. One night when they're making dinner, Ryle burns his hand. Lily laughs and then he pushes her because that's the same thing to do. I'm making light of this, I feel like. I don't mean for it to, okay? This is just who I am as a person. Like, being too serious is gonna make me feel some kind of way. Sarcasm is just my way to go. I'm gonna tone it back down a little bit. But so when this happens, Lily tries to convince herself that it's like a one-time thing, right? She just doesn't want to consider the possibilities that he could be like her father at this point. And Ryle, being the master manipulator that he is like, oh, it's my hand, Lily. I'm a neurosurgeon. This is so important to me. So Ryle and Lily make it back to the restaurant that Atlas works at, but plot twist, he owns it. So like kind of a slave for Atlas, like congrats to him. And there, Ryle says something that really when he's talking to his sister and Marshall, her husband, because they're talking about the bruise that Lily has on her temple. And he said she slipped, right? There was olive oil everywhere. She slipped. It was so graceful. You think she was a ballerina. Ew. Not just ew on like the behalf of him pushing her and then lying about it, but like that just she was a graceful ballerina. Shut up. Alice seems to be the only one who notices the correlation between the bruise on her temple and his hand, and pulls her aside at one point when she's in the restroom and tells her like, hey, what happened to your mom is happening to you. Like, I'm here for you if you need it. To which she says that no, that it's nothing like that. Ryle sees them, they have a little bit of a tussle, and then the following day, Atlas goes to Lily's flower shop and gives her a note with his phone number in case she ever needs help. And sadly, she is going to need that phone number afterwards, but not before we get the Ryle backstory. When he was 6 years old, he was playing with his brother, and went papoom and shot him. It was an accident, though, they say. We don't really know, do we? Not me blaming the 6-year-old, because like that's clearly a parent problem. Like, why would you allow that to be within reach of your child? That has some questionable things that I don't totally believe him, I'm not gonna lie. He does say that he tries to put his brother's like head stuff back in. Head stuff. Great vocabulary there, Jasmine. That's a picture and as to why he is sometimes violent. Lily once again trying to differentiate her life with Ryle to that of her mother and her father. She's like, oh, you know what? He has a reason to be violent. He has trauma. My father never did. So they can't be the same. Therefore, I am not my mother. It's a major topic in this book, that it's like intergenerational trauma and the cycle of abuse. A lot of internal like dilemmas and battles of not wanting to be like her mother and not wanting to admit that, oh, she might be. And there's a couple quotes here that I actually think are like pretty good, not gonna lie. So I'm gonna read you one of them. Just because someone hurts you doesn't mean that you simply stop loving them. It's not the person's actions that hurt the most, it's the love. If there was no love attached to the action, the pain would be easier to bear. These are all coming from her journal entries. People on the outside of these situations often wonder why the woman goes back to the abuser. I read somewhere once that 85% of women return to abusive situations. That was before I realized I was one. And when I heard the statistic, I thought it was because these women were stupid. I thought it was because they were weak. I thought these things about my own mother more than once. But sometimes the reason women go back is simply because they're in love. I love my husband, Ellen. Yeah, she makes her journal entries to Ellen DeGeneres. Remember, that's something she does. I love so many things about him. I wish cutting my feelings off for this person who hurt me was as easy as I used to think it would be. Preventing your heart from forgiving someone you love is actually a hell of a lot harder than simply forgiving them. I'm statistic now. The thing I thought about women like me now, what others would think of me if they were in my situation. How could she love him after what he did to her? How could she contemplate taking him back? It's sad that those are the first thoughts that run through our minds when someone is abused. Shouldn't there be more distaste in our mouths for the abuser than those who continue to love their abuser? I think of all people who have been in this situation before me, everyone who will be in this situation after me. Do we all repeat the same words in our heads in the days after experiencing abuse at the hands of those who love us? From this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Maybe those vows weren't meant to be taken as literally as some spouses take them. For better, for worse, fuck that shit, Lily. All of these quotes aren't happening exactly in the point of the summary that I'm currently on, which is probably going on longer than I intended to. They do a really good job at showing Lily and her thought process through all of this. There are lines that can allow a reader to rethink their own biases and how they perceive these situations, because as a society we question women's actions and then judge them for them. And then just with victims in general, it's like, why are you taking your questions, to that person, not being like, why was this person abusive? It's like, why did you stay? Why did you say? That last part that I read had like wedding vows, because Lily and Ryle too get married at one point. While they have their moments of happiness, Ryle always has this kind of like underlying jealousy for Atlas. One of the moments that this is kind of shown is Lily has a magnet that says better in Boston, and he comes across an interview for Atlas and his restaurant, which is called Bibs, stands for better in Boston, and he says that it's like after a girl, right? That was like the dedication. And in the book we also have Ryle pushing Lily down the stairs and an almost rape that ends up kind of being the catalyst for Lily contacting Atlas and getting help. Here we find out that she's pregnant. And for the next couple of days she's staying with Atlas. We get introduced to his bros who play poker, and they seem kind of like a delight. I'm not gonna lie, they seem like a fun friend group. They reveal to her because Lily in the back of her mind is always like, oh, Cassie, Atlas's girlfriend Cassie, and they're like, Cassie doesn't exist. He like straight up lied to you. So there's no Cassie. In the meantime, there's no Ryle either, because he's about to spend the next 3 months in England for some Cambridge thing. I didn't mention the character of Alyssa too much in this little recap. Ryle's sister who works at the flower shop, but her and Lily are best friends, and she seems to know that something's up. She also just had a baby. I kind of just skipped over that entire storyline. She discusses the abuse that she suffered and also mentions her pregnancy. We get a quote that to my understanding is like a big deal in the It Ends With Us fandom. She says, "My brother loves you, Lily. He loves you so much. You have changed his entire life and have made him someone I never thought he could be. As his sister, I wish more than anything that you can find a way to forgive him. But as your best friend, I have to tell you that if you take him back, I will never speak to you again." It takes a moment for her words to register, but when they do, I start sobbing. She starts sobbing. She wraps her arm around me, and we cry over the mutual love we have for Ryle. We cry over how much we hate him right now. Oh, and one thing that I can't believe I almost forgot about. There was a quote that Ryle says the first time and then gets brought up a couple more times. And it is, "There is no such thing as bad people, only people who do bad things." And then Lily says something like, "Yeah, I think we're all just people who do bad things." And can I just say that saying feels like something a bad person says. Also, like, yeah, there was most definitely just bad people. Like, some of them even made headlines, buddy. Like, you know them, I know them. And I understand, to a degree, what it's trying to say, right? Like, is evil born or is it created? I did a whole project on it my senior year in college about serial killers. Are they born or are they created? That was a very fun, very interesting thing that I had to do. Fun is probably not the right word for that. Ooh, anyways. And how trauma and head injuries have created like evil / violence in people in the past. And I think the Ryle backstory with his brother shows some sort of connection there, of like, was he violent, therefore he shot his brother, or is it like he shot his brother, saw violence, and then wanted to create more? Was this trauma? Is this a response? Psychologically, you can make reasoning for that. I think it's an interesting topic, both in regards to Ryle as a character and just in general. I feel like that quote was also kind of like relevant in multiple parts of the book, and it needed to be mentioned in this. Okay, back to the original video. I don't know what the general consensus to the Alyssa character is. I'm assuming it's like mostly positive, for the love that there is for that specific quote. But I was kind of indifferent to her. Like, I didn't care much for her. Like, sure, she had her moments of being funny and being like, "Huh, we're rich. That's our brand." But Ryle eventually makes it back and discovers that Lily is pregnant. And during this time, we have this whole like, should I take him back? Like, you know, some people are abusive to their spouses, but not their kids. And also like, do you want to have this potentially dangerous man around your child, Lily? She's having these like inner dialogues with herself, but by the time that their daughter comes, who's named Emerson after Ryle's brother, says that she wants a divorce. Lily, he says, shaking his head back and forth, "Please don't do this." His voice is pleading, and I hate that he has been holding on to hope that I will eventually take him back. That's partly my fault. No, but I don't think I realized what choice I was going to make until I held my daughter for the first time. Just one more chance, Lily, please. His voice cracks with tears when he speaks. I know I'm hurting him in the worst possible ways, breaking his heart when this should be the best moment of his life. But I know I don't do it in this moment. I might never be able to convince him why I can't risk taking him back. I begin to cry because it's hurting me as much as it's hurting him. Ryle, I say gently, what would you do if one of these days this little girl looks up to you and said, "Daddy, my boyfriend hit me"? What would you say to her, Ryle? He pulls Emerson to his chest and buries his face against the top of her blanket. "Stop, Lily," he begs. I push myself straighter on the bed as I place my hand on Emerson's back and try to get Ryle to look me in the eyes. What if she came to you and said, "Daddy, my husband pushed me down the stairs. He said it was an accident. What should I do?" His shoulders begin to shake, and for the first time since the day I met him, he has tears, real tears that rush down his cheeks as he holds his daughter tightly against him. I'm crying too. I keep going for her sake. Just so I don't bore you with my continuous reading, I'm going to pop it up and then just read his response. A sob breaks from his chest and he leans towards me, wrapping an arm around me. I would beg her to leave him, he says. Through his tears, his lip pressed desperately against my forehead, and I can feel some of his tears as they fall to his cheeks. He moves his hand on an ear and cradles both of us together. I would tell her that she is worth so much more, and I would beg her not to go back no matter how much he loves her. She's worth so much more. And I don't know how I feel about the ending, because we have that whole, like, 15 seconds can change everything. 15 minutes can change anything. And here we have, like, in the last 15 minutes, he lost the love of his life. In the last 15 minutes, he became a father to a beautiful little girl. That's what 15 minutes can do to a person. It can destroy them. It can save them. And based on all of this, we're going to have, like, an okay, they're going to co-parent. Part of me is like, well, if I was in that situation, I would never, like, allow this abusive man around my child. And it's like, no, now I'm a hypocrite, because I don't know. I haven't been in that situation, right? And it's like, damn, am I one of the judgmental side of people? Yeah. Like, I need to reevaluate. I need to consider stuff here. And if it made me question that, like, it made me reevaluate my own thinking. Like, it did something, right? Like, and if it has the ability to do that for me and I'm able to make that connection, it means someone else did too. At the end, I'm honestly just kind of, like, proud of it. Like, I read this book in the span of less than 24 hours. And she's genuinely a character that I'm like, okay, she has depth. There's something there. Like, she isn't a one-note character. And I think given the fact that from the author's note, we know that Colleen Hoover experienced childhood like Lily's. A lot of it was probably a lot more personal to her. I don't know much about Colleen Hoover as a person, I'm gonna be honest. Like, but I think there's a lot of honesty there in her writing, and I can respect that. Cycles exist because they are excruciating to break. It takes an astronomical amount of pain and courage to disrupt a familiar pattern. Sometimes it seems easier to just keep running in the same familiar circles rather than facing the fear of jumping and possibly not landing on your feet. My mother went through that. I went through that, and I'll be damned that I allow my daughter to go through it. I kiss her forehead and make a promise. It stops here with me and you. It ends with us. And I kind of love that, okay? I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. I like the title. You know what, Colleen Hoover, you got me, okay? And it's for certain lines like that I'm like, okay, I can appreciate the book for what it has. And this is where we've come to problems with the way that it is portrayed. People talk about the romanticization of this book and the romanticization of abuse, but I think had Lily not left at the end, I could agree with that, and I would stand by that. But the fact that she does leave and she does break the cycle, I also can't understand that if you're younger reading this, your perspective is going to be different. Like, me at 14 is going to have a different perspective than me at 23 reading this. Is that on the author? Like, I know that there's a lot of debate on certain covers. Icebreaker comes to mind when it's like, it's a cartoon cover. Young people are going to pick it up. Kids are going to pick it up. Even though you can tell the difference, and I don't know if that's just me as someone who's like a member of the book community that is in these spaces seeing the cartoon covers, but YA books and adult books in cartoons always have like a slightly different style, and the characters are different just so you can tell. But back to my point here, it's that idea of like, are authors and publishing companies responsible for what could fall into the hands of a certain child, right? Or is that like parents' responsibilities? And I would land on the parents' responsibility. And I say that as someone who was like 12 years old on Wattpad reading my One Direction Smiley fanfics. You know, like I was reading After in 7th grade, and I was getting all my girlies to read it with me. My thoughts on it are probably going to change with time, as anything does. But even just in like the progression of filming this video, I'm like, I have a love for Lily that's probably stronger than I thought it was at the start of recording this. Like, am I saying this is gonna be a classic? Of course not. Let's be serious. But for what it is, I enjoyed it. However, I think it should have been categorized under like women's fiction, literary fiction, just general fiction, as opposed to romance, contemporary romance. Like, I think that's the biggest blunder, and I'll get more into that and how it's advertised as part of the problematic nature. And I think had it just not been advertised in the way that it was, people would be a lot more forgiving for it, and people would be a lot more open to this book. We've made it to the flower shop because Blake Lively and Colleen Hoover said, get your florals and your busties and head to the movie theater. Oh, that's not
Oh, that's no. In the sense that, no. You know what I mean?
So this is going to be where we're going to discuss a little bit of the drama, okay? Because I see where some complaints come from, and I'm also like, another part of me is like, I don't know how I feel about that, because there's been a lot going on with Justin Baldoni versus the rest of the crew. Someone following, some shade, which, like I said, is part of the reason why I started, because I was like, I want to be in the know, like fully understand the drama, and then to go watch the movie. However, a bunch of clips of it have been added to TikTok, which I feel like I've seen half the movie at this point, that I'm like, should I even go? In the meantime, I want to bring back to that, like, bring your florals and your busties. Because it feels like they're trying to have Brett Summer while being a member of the Reports Department. I'm sorry. That was bad. But like, they really are trying to have like a Barbie Summer moment, when it's like, that's not what this movie is about. It's giving like, do you remember when the coloring book came out? And people were like, why is there a coloring book that you're making like the situation, and that's what this is feeling like. That's what this press tour that has somehow like included Deadpool at this point is feeling like. I've also seen some comments and some tweets of people being like, I originally thought that this was a rom-com. Like that's what it was advertised, so that's what I thought it was. And I would say that the promotion, like the press tour, is definitely giving rom-com besides Justin Bieber. But I went back and I saw the trailer a couple times, and no, I think it's showing that it's not lighthearted. I will say media literacy is at all-time low, so that's another topic to discuss. But definitely the lightheartedness is being pushed a lot more than the heaviness of it. And I can see it being a way to draw people in. Like, if your target audience is like teenage girls, what's going to bring more teenage girls to the movie theater? Or like young adults for that matter. Like, what's going to bring people to the movie theater? This light, fun rom-com with Serena Vanderwoodson and Rafael Solano, or this heavy movie about domestic violence. Clearly the first one. That's what you have to consider for a younger audience, like a teen audience. It's like, do you have to set this up and be like, this is what's in it, here's some trigger warnings. Even though there's been studies where like trigger warnings aren't that useful. My psychology professor did them to us once, and we were like, ooh, that's interesting. But anyways, back to this. It's like, should the movie be responsible for the possibility of a teenage girl seeing this and being deeply influenced? I say as someone who was like part of the PLL watchers at like middle school, where you're like, oh my god, the teacher and the student, so slay. And now looking back at it as an adult, you're like, why were we watching that? Like, who allowed us to watch that? And it's like, probably our parents should have been the ones to like clock it, but they didn't. So should we blame like the creators of the content, the actors, the producers, the people that are editing it? Like, are they to blame for the situation? If that's the case, then we should go in like trigger warning list that it should be on the poster for that matter. But if we turn it, we can see it and be like, okay, what if we're going into this expecting a rom-com the way that Lily expected the best of Rob and expected this epic romance? And then it's like, well, that didn't happen, so it's like the plot twist. But is abuse a plot twist? Some people would say it is, and it counts as a plot twist, right? You have like the Akatar girlies and their love of Tamlin and being like, oh my god, I hate Tamlin. So you have like the Tamlin effect. This would also allow you to have more of a connection to Lily because you saw the switch happen and you're having that internal dilemma, like Lily's having that internal dilemma. So I could appreciate it for that. But again, then it's not a romance, because a romance needs to have a happily ever after. And here, these two don't end up together, so then it's not a happily ever after, but it could be like, it's a happily ever after with their child in two separate homes and like co-parenting. But that's not what you go in expecting a romance. So therefore it is factually not a romance. So you can't advertise it as such. From my experience and from my perspective, I went in knowing that It Ends With Us was about DV, and I thought that was like pretty clear, but I understand that that's in the book world and like the TikTok community and not the general public. I'm doing a lot of this today. But anyways, I feel like going Flower Shops in Love in the Taylor Swift soundtrack isn't the way to go about this. In like, if you're trying to have some meaning there, if you're trying to show some depth there, this is not the way to do it. Because you either highlight the importance and the weight of it, which Justin Bieber seems to be doing. You present it as like this happy, fluffy story, which is not, so then it's false advertising. And like that's the problem. You wanted to have this happy love story with like a flower shop as the background. You should have been part of Forget Me Not by Julie Soto's movie adaptation, you know? Like that's where you could have gone. Insert some of those clips of Justin Bieber giving his press and then other cast members, so you can see like the weird disconnect that it's like, are you two even talking about the same movie? Like it's weird.
This is your night, mister.
No, this isn't my night. This is a night for all the women who we made this movie for. What comes to mind isn't so much about the work that went into it, but about the why behind it. If a Lily Bloom in real life can sit in this theater and maybe make a different choice for herself than was made for her, maybe she sees herself on that screen and chooses something different for herself, that's why I made the movie.
One of the things that I think is very easy to say, especially for us men, is when we maybe talk to somebody who's in this situation, or we read a book, or we hear a news story, the question that's always asked is, why did she stay? And that's the wrong question.
Yeah.
What we need to be asking ourselves is, why do men harm?
Yes.
And that was the big thing for me. And what I've learned more and more and more of is, like, you know, these women who experience this every single day, there's real love there. You know, there's charm, there's charisma, there's passion, there's this belief that they can be better. And it's not so simple. So our friends at No More, I'm wearing their pin right now, they were the ones who really worked with me to help me make this film as truthful as possible and hopefully do justice to all the women who experience this.
It's fun. It's romance. There's hot guys. There's hot girls. Like, There's sobbing, there's crying, there's love, it's got everything that you want.
Like, it just feels like they're glossing over it. Like, you have one where Blake Lively mentions that, like, yeah, she's so much more than just the abuse that she experienced. And
this movie covers domestic violence, but what's important about this film is that she is not just a survivor and she's not just a victim. And while those are huge things to be, they're not her identity. She's not defined by something that someone else did to her or an event that...
As a human, you are everything that has been done to you and everything that you do. Like Psychology 101, that's who you are at your core. So you can't act like having experienced this isn't an instrumental part of who you are as a person. Like, you would not be you if you did not experience this, and this experience has created the mindset that you currently have. Like, sure, you wouldn't want to say like, oh, I am just these horrible experiences, like that's all I am as a person, but you can't act like they don't impact you. It is an absolutely defining moment in your life. It is something that changes you mentally. You can't pretend that it doesn't, and to act like it does is insulting, to be completely honest with you. And like, I'm sorry to anyone who saw that and felt like personally affected by it and being like, that's rude and disrespectful, because it is. There's just another interview where they mentioned that like, oh, Lily Bloom got her dream. What's your dream? And she's like, to wear the Britney Spears Versace dress. What? Again, why are Deadpool and Wolverine part of this press tour? That seems weird, because apparently Ryan and Blake like work on each other's things. Like, she mentions that, and apparently he also rewrote the entire Rouge thing, which is part of the drama, I hear, because Mr. Baldoni wasn't too pleased about it, because the Lively Reynolds tried taking over. They put in like extra money and we're like, oh, we're gonna rewrite this, reshoot this, we're gonna change this up. Like, they were trying to have a lot more say in what ended up being done. So I can understand why, as you, the director, would be like kind of upset. Like, hey, I figured I bought the rights to this movie like 5 years ago, and like I've been planning it. I've been trying to take care of this and actually mean something. And then we have that. I understand why he's upset, especially considering that word on the street is that she might direct the sequel. That would make sense as to why people are on their side, is all I'm saying. Not to speculate on the drama as a speculator, but I'm speculating. Now I'm gonna read some tweets because Twitter is where all sane people go. This one made me cackle and is very true. Justin Baldoni, they will never make me hate you unless more information comes out that makes me hate you. Researching why none of the it-ins with this cast and author followed Justin Baldoni on social media, and why he didn't introduce the film at the premiere, and why he hasn't done any of the press with anyone. And it's Spencer Hastings going on a rapid research. The only person that I've seen mention Justin Baldoni is Mr. Kevin McKidd, Owen Hunt himself, on TikTok, and the comments, and that was also really funny. I'm gonna find them. Give me a sec.
I mean, Justin Baldoni is a good friend of mine, and he asked me to do this role, and he's like, this is a tough role to do, and it's, he does horrible things, and so it was a real challenge. I will say that it was a real challenge. And
Owen Hunt is perfect with his PTSD background. My jaw dropped when I saw Owen Hunt. If trauma was a person, I'd be scared of Owen Hunt. I just saw this. I leaned over to my mom and I said, of course Owen Hunt is in this movie. Does Teddy know he's moonlighting? And who plays Lily's mother? Teddy? And while Major Owen Hunt seems to be talking about Justin Baldoni, let's hear that interview of Jenny Slate where she like completely avoids the question, but then goes on to have like this dedicated thing to Blake Lively.
To me, what was that like, having him be director but also scene partner?
I mean, what an intense job! Like to have to do so many things. I just found myself being like, wow, I really just want to have one job at once. Like and in fact, I've often felt that way. Like, I really like writing and I like it so much, and it's special to be able to be a writer. But like, yeah, I was looking around just being like, I'm good with just acting.
She's trying to get that bag, and you know what, girl? Do I get your coin? No, I'm kidding. Don't feed into bully groups. Don't do it. Back to Twitter, which I don't have. Please don't ask me about my Twitter. That's a secret between me and my like 5 friends who know about this account and my Twitter. I've been looking into the ends with this drama, and I'm seeing that Justin Baldoni is the only one using press to discuss the topic of this movie, which is DV, and Miss Rena Vander Woodson is using it to promote her hairline and Deadpool x Wolverine. Honestly, yeah, her hairline, Blake Brown hair, I think is what it's called. Am I the only one who's never thought of Blake Lively in correlation to her hair? Like, that's not something I think about. Like, I think of like the McGallow. Like, if she wanted to go with the line, should have been clothes, should have been gowns, beautiful gowns, great gowns. I say as a Taylor Swift fan, please don't come for me. Justin Baldoni had the best intentions to bring advocacy to TV, but unfortunately he picked the most pick-me girl to ever exist and produce the film, who allowed her husband to bulldoze the PR and writing. Ooh, T, they said it, not me. Not me, my dear. Do you guys remember the rumor that Scarlett Johansson and Ryan Reynolds broke up because their star power was rising and Ryan was jealous / wanted control of that? Anyways, bye is what this person said in regards to the rooftop scene. I didn't say it, they did. Let's keep it pushing here. Justin Baldoni, they can't make me hate you, and then I'll insert the thing.
I'm always going to come with my own biases. And it's one of the reasons I was afraid to direct this movie, let alone act in it. And I wanted to make sure this film always had a female gaze, and I was never putting myself into it.
The T is that if he wanted to showcase DV in true, authentic light, he should have picked a better source material like here. And this is one of the things that I'm going to disagree with, I'm going to be honest, and this one might be controversial, but hear me out. I think using something that had such popular source material was actually a great way to go about it. Colleen Hoover is no saint, and this book was not perfect. I don't think it romanticized it as much as people were saying, and I think if you saw it in a romantic sense, I think that's more like you should question it, because like not to be like, oh my god, I'm so much better than everyone, but when I saw Ryle kick the chair back in like 2020, I didn't see it, I read it, I was like, ooh, and then I left and I pieced out, and then it wasn't until after that I found out that he's actually an abuser in the book. So then I was like, oh, that makes sense. That was a red flag. Is there better books to display TV? Absolutely, 1000%. Would studios and like companies want to give money to something that's not as successful and make that a film? Probably not. You know, like, you have to pick your battle sometimes. Just considering that the book is so popular, it already has a built-in audience. So the people who know what it's about are gonna go because they liked the book, or they want to go hate watch, whichever way it may be. But then the people who have never heard about the book and have no idea of it are gonna check it out just because it's creating hype. So I think in that case, it's smart and strategic if he did want to make it a way that more people would have their eyes open to this world. Making another call back here to Barbie, because it does remind me a little bit about that, and how some people were like, it's very white feminist, it's very like, one note, it's lacking depth, this is stuff I already knew. It's like, yeah, you knew that and I knew that, like, but it's like, I can understand that some people didn't. Some people left the theater with their minds completely blown and being like, oh my god, I didn't know this, I was sobbing, I had like an internal dilemma of like, I never realized. And it's like, sometimes people just need the entry, they need a way into the door, into the room, to understand this concept. That should might seem so elementary, but it's like some people don't even have that yet, so like give them grace to be introduced to this new subject. So anyways, the drama led me to a book that I ended up surprisingly not hating. It was a lot better than I expected it to be, considering how much people shit on it. Will I watch the movie? Probably. Probably not at the theaters. Like I said, so many clips of it have already been posted onto TikTok. Like, I might just wait till it goes on streaming. I could appreciate My Tears Ricochet, my favorite song off Folklore. That was great. Also, I really liked the idea of My Tears Ricochet when you think about it. Considering that in the rooftop, Lily mentions her dad and he was abusive to her mom, and then Ryle goes on to do that to her, and you may think like, how could he take advantage of her knowing the situation that she experienced as a child? But it's like, that's exactly what My Tears Ricochet is about. And I'm about to go into a very annoying Swiftie tangent, so if you want to click out, you can. But when Taylor wrote that in the Long Pond sessions, she says that it's like how a person can go from being like your best friend, someone you trusted, to then being the person who hurts you the most because they were someone you once trusted and because they know how to hurt you. Like, all my enemies started without friends line. Because she mentioned how like in superhero stories you have like their nemesis or their villain in their story was the person who was once their best friend, and just like correlates it to divorce. And it's like, I think that's a great song to use for this, which kind of helps paint it in a heavier light. Like they could have gone with Cruel Summer, and like there I'd have issues. They also could have gone with like I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can, and that'd be problematic on a whole other level. So fangirl freak out semi aside, I will never judge someone for something that they enjoy and that they like, and if you love this book, shit, keep loving this book. Honestly, like, go for it. I don't care. Love what you love as long as you're not hurting anybody. And if you're someone who like absolutely hates it, you're fine too. Like, I love to hate things. Just don't hate on the people who don't hate it. Like, don't be an asshole just for the sake of being an asshole. Again, me and my Taylor Swift world here. I also don't like people who just make other people feel bad about the thing that they love. Like, that's stupid, and that's a waste of your own time and your own energy. So like, why do it? Why do it? But again, I do love being a hater, so I'm a hypocrite. I've admitted it. I've admitted to it. It's fine. And here's my conclusion to like wrap this up. I finished this book this morning, probably like 5-6 hours ago. And it was better than I expected, because I expected really low, and I feel like sometimes you have expectations and they're not met and you're like, oh, this sucks. But I was like, oh my god, I was like genuinely surprised. Like, I liked it. Some parts I thought were good, because I went in with such low expectations. I'm gonna say that this is a solid 3 stars for me. Could it change? Yeah. Will it? Probably. I don't like rating books right after I finish them, just because I feel like I need to sit with it a little bit. That's usually more when it's like about to be like close to a 5 star, that I'm like, will it, won't it, will it, won't it. And I think 3 is pretty good with us. I understand its critiques, I also understand why people like it. I think had I read it when I was younger, I could have romanticized it a little bit more. I think had I not known the plot twist, which again, people have issues with it being a plot twist, I'd have different feelings towards it. Like I said, I also did try reading it once and was just not interested like 5 pages in. A book is honestly anything, really. This could work for like movies, TV shows, anything really. It's about when you're exposed to it and when you interact with it that really does make the biggest difference. And with that, I say to each their own. And if you happen to find yourself in some of these situations, I will link some resources down below for you. Anyways, do all the YouTube things, like, comment, let me know your thoughts, let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me, if you think I'm stupid. And if you're like, oh my god, girl slay, sure, leave a comment, like, share, do all the things. Okay, bye!